All right, so we're diving into satellite internet this time.
Oh, yeah.
And it really is like this new space race.
Hmm.
But instead of, putting a flag on the moon,
Right.
it's about who can get the fastest internet to the most people in like the hardest to reach places.
Yeah, to those people who really need it.
Exactly.
Where
Yeah.
cell service just doesn't cut it.
Like where even like a carrier pigeon would struggle to get there.
Right, exactly.
So the place we're focusing on today is India,
Okay, cool.
because you've got Elon Musk's Starlink coming in, and it's going to be like a huge shakeup.
Big time.
They're planning to launch in February 2025.
Wow, so soon.
Yeah, and they're going up against these massive companies that are already like household names in India.
Right, the big dogs.
Yeah, like Jio and Airtel.
Yep.
So it's kind of like David and Goliath,
Yeah.
but like in space.
Totally.
Oh, and I almost forgot.
Yeah.
We can't leave out Amazon
Oh, yeah, they're in the mix too.
with their Project Kuiper.
It's getting crowded up there.
Seriously. So many players. It's going to be wild.
So what's the big question then? What are we trying to figure out in this deep dive?
Well, the big question is, can this actually be a game changer for internet in India?
That's a good question.
Like, are we talking crazy fast speeds for everyone? Or is it just enough to like finally get a decent signal in the Himalayas?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, when I first started reading about this, I was surprised that Starlink might actually launch before Jio and Airtel even get their satellite internet up and running.
That's pretty crazy considering Jio and Airtel are already like giants over there.
I know. It doesn't really make sense until you start looking at the whole regulatory thing and how they allocate spectrum.
Yeah, that can definitely slow things down.
So can you break down the spectrum thing a little for those of us who aren't like telecom engineers?
Sure. So basically, spectrum is kind of like the highway that all these satellite signals use.
Okay, so it's like the road they travel on.
Exactly. And the Department of Telecommunications in India, they're the ones in charge of deciding who gets which lane on that highway.
So they have to give Starlink their own lane.
Right. And they're still figuring out how to do that.
Makes sense.
But at the same time, Jio and Airtel, they're pushing for something called an auction model.
What does that mean? Like they bid on it.
Exactly. They want to bid on the spectrum.
Okay, so it's like they're saying, hey, we want to do this by the book?
Right, and maybe also slow Starlink down a bit.
So it's a little bit of both.
I mean, it makes sense from a business perspective.
Right, you don't want someone just cutting in line.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess the question is, are Jio and Airtel actually worried about Starlink? Like, is it really that big of a threat?
Well, think about it this way. If they go with the auction, it could delay things for months, maybe even years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, and it's not just about companies competing.
Right. There are real people who are waiting for this internet.
Exactly. People in villages, students who need to study online, businesses that are trying to grow.
So it's a trade-off.
Totally.
Yeah.
A fair process versus getting people connected as fast as possible.
And it sounds like the Indian government is leaning towards faster. Yeah. I read that the Union Communications Minister, Jyotiraditya Scindia, basically said that they're ready to give Elon Musk a license.
No kidding.
Yep, and that a decision on the spectrum should be made by the end of this month.
Huh. So things are moving fast.
Yeah, but let's get practical for a second.
Okay.
Let's say Starlink does launch in February.
All right.
How fast is this internet going to be? Are we talking like fiber optic speeds, or is it more like, dial up with a better view?
So Starlink usually gets between 50 to 150 millility for downloads
Okay, that's not bad.
and 10 to 20 millility for uploads.
All right.
But to be honest, that's actually a bit slower than what Jio and Airtel are offering in some places.
Really?
Yeah, with their fiber and 4G networks.
Huh. So what's the big deal with Starlink then?
The reach.
The reach.
Yeah. Satellite internet can go places where those traditional networks just can't.
Like way out in the boonies.
Exactly. Those Himalayan villages we were talking about. Forests, islands.
Places where it's too expensive or difficult to build those big towers?
Exactly. Starlink could be a game changer for those areas.
So are we talking like a doctor in Mumbai could do a video call with a patient in a village?
Exactly. And it's not just about individuals.
Right. It's about entire communities getting access.
Exactly. Businesses, farmers, even artists could connect with the world.
Wow. So it really is about opportunity.
Yeah. Opening up a whole world of possibilities.
And this isn't even the end of it. We've got Amazon waiting in the wings with their own satellite project.
Right. Project Kuiper. They're going to launch a whole constellation of satellites, too.
It's amazing. It's like the space race all over again.
Just with internet instead of astronauts.
Exactly. So to sum it all up, we've got this potential internet revolution happening in India.
Big changes.
Satellite internet, even if it's not the fastest right now, could really change things for people who've been left behind.
Yeah. It's all about access.
But it's not simple. We've got regulations, cost issues, and a lot of competition.
A lot to think about.
Here's a question for our listeners. What would you do if you were in charge? Would you prioritize getting internet to those communities as fast as possible, even if it meant maybe bending the rules a bit? Or would you stick to the traditional route like an auction, even if it meant people had to wait longer?
That's a tough one.
It is. It's about finding the right balance.
And that's what makes it so interesting to follow.
Definitely. We'll have to keep an eye on this and see how it all plays out.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of satellite internet in India.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking about this.
Always a pleasure, and we'll see everyone next time.
See you then.